Check it out. Hold on. Yeah, check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Coming to you guys. Decided to change things up. This is my in the background, my music room slash workout room slash office. Pardon me for it looking a little junky. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so y'all can't see all my stuff. But check this out, man. I just want to talk a little bit about been a lot of talk about the hurricane activity that we've seen in the last few weeks. And I don't know if anybody noticed this or not, but it's to me it seemed to start occurring right after the solar eclipse, and I brought this attention to some people that I know at work, and they were like, no, we didn't notice Hurricane Harvey hit after the eclipse. And I'm like, dude, how could you not recognize that? And to me it just seems like that's obvious, right? So we have three other hurricanes that are in the Gulf or the Atlantic. You got one in the Gulf, Katia, and then we have Hurricane Irma, which is way bigger than daggone Harvey. Irma don't look like it's no pump. She goes hard. They got Irma and they got Jose that's right behind Irma. So, there's a lot of people on YouTube that's saying, hey, man, look here, man. This is the government doing this. The government is using HAARP to create these hurricanes and basically tear up a whole lot of stuff. Now, I understand that argument, but the only thing about that I just do not agree with is that it just seems to me, okay, you're saying that the government is going to construct a weapon that could be used to basically create weather, control the weather. They're going to create a Hurricane Harvey, direct that hurricane towards Texas, South Texas, Houston, basically tear up everything down and flood everything out. And then the governor of Texas is going to turn around and ask the government, the United States, for a bailout, $100 billion. The government is going to create a weapon that will create a hurricane, direct the hurricane towards Houston, tear up everything, and then go pay over $100 billion that we really don't have to go clean up everything. And then they're going to go back with HAARP and create 3 new hurricanes and direct them in different parts of the United States to tear up more stuff, and then the government come out of pocket and pay for it. I mean, that's the most idiotic and stupidest thing that I've ever heard of. Now, there are videos about the chemtrails, and people think that they're seeding the clouds, which, I've heard of them being able to do that, seed the clouds. But you're talking about the scale that Harvey is on, the scale that Irma is at, which is even greater. That's a lot of seeding of clouds, Doc. And I see everybody giving credit to government, to the HAARP, and all these other things, but nobody's talking about God's hand in this. And you might say, well, why God? Why God? Why would God? God is a good God. God is a loving God. Why would God send us basically 4 hurricanes almost back to back, like in a row? Oh, well, I think our interpretation, which I'm not going to get into no big religious discussion, that's not my point. But even if your argument was to say that the devil did it, think about this. Even if the devil was responsible for sending all of those hurricanes, people always say God is in control and he controls everything. Well, let's see. Even if the devil did do it, he can only do it because of God allowed him to do it. It was through his permissive will. Everything that God does is through his active or permissive will. And I just don't. I think we give the government too much credit for something that big. This a hurricane, the way a hurricane functions is far more complex because you have air systems that are going that can affect and shift the direction that the hurricane may travel, and the hurricane feeds off the warmth, the warm temperatures of the water. So that's why this time of year is what we call hurricane season. That's the reason why it's called hurricane season. So I think it's a little bit more to this than somebody seeing some clouds. And I mean the magnitude of Irma. When I've looked at it, I said no, doc. This is bigger than than the government. And even if the government did possess something like this, with everything that's going on with North Korea talking all of this smack, which I don't personally believe, I don't think they're doing that. To me, it makes no sense. From what I've seen historically, as far as war is concerned, you don't see, well, those were different times, but historically, when you look at war, there's not one country. They say claim that North Korea claims to be ready to basically send a rocket or a missile to hit the United States, mainland United States. But I'm like, if that's the case, you gonna go and warn and tell United States that this is what you're gonna do? I mean, that makes no sense. Most times when a war happens, it's it's not that kind of a warning, especially when you're looking at a smaller government in relation to a bigger government. No, no. And the reason I say that, when you look at, I'm going to use something that everybody knows about. When you look at the Palestinians and the fight that they're having with the Israelis, did they go and warn these people when they get ready to strap a bomb to themselves and just blow up stuff? No, they don't warn anybody. They just go and do it. That's what I'm saying. When you're looking at governments that are on a more of an equal footing, you see this kind of dialogue. When the Cold War was going on, you saw a different kind of dialogue between United States and Russia. It's like, we don't want to go to war. We're trying to be diplomatic because each one knows that they both contain enough firepower to significantly change or mess up a lot of stuff, which in turn, in doing that, that's going to affect trade. When you look at the United States, we are one of the world's biggest consumers, the world's biggest consumer markets. We buy a lot from China. We buy a lot from Asia. You see what I'm saying? So when you look at that, it really doesn't make any sense. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Okay. I noticed that a lot of the hurricane activity happened after the solar eclipse, which sometimes I mention this to people, see what's on their mind. And I mentioned this at work. Shouldn't have did that. Some people were like, yeah, I know it was not like I got some kind of big backlash, but there were some people that were like, no, I didn't notice. I basically said, did you all notice that the solar eclipse happened, or the Hurricane Harvey hit after the solar eclipse? And a lot of people were like, no, we didn't. Now we got 3 other hurricanes. And what a lot of times people don't understand is that the moon affects the tides. So I don't know how the moon could affect the tides this much to where we got 3 new hurricanes that are about to hit the United States. But it brought to my mind something in the scripture about the story of Joseph. And you may wonder, what does this have to do with anything? Well, we look at the story of Joseph. Joseph was in slavery, in bondage, or his brothers basically sold him into slavery. And he was in bondage. And he was gifted with the ability to be able to interpret dreams. However, and he worked for the king, but the king's wife wanted basically to fuck him. So he wasn't going that way. So she lied on him and said that, hey, he tried to take it, which really, according to the story, uh, his shirt was rent or torn from the back. So that means he was trying to leave her. Now, had it been torn from the front, that means she was trying to grab him and pull him closer to her to have sex, which that's not what he was trying to do. So all in all, he got put in jail. The king had a dream. Don't give me telling you what the king's name is because I don't remember. It's been a long time ago. I just know the story. The king had a dream, right? He had a dream of 7 fat cows, and he had a dream of 7 lean cows. And then in the dream, the 7 lean cows ate the 7 fat cows. Now he could not, for the life of him, figure out what the dream meant. All right. Then someone called to his attention that, hey, Joseph, who is in jail that you locked up, he's able to interpret dreams. Get him out of jail. Get him out of jail. And let's see what he has to say about this dream. Joseph told him, he said, look, man, your kingdom will have 7 years of feast. I'm not paraphrasing. I'm not saying it exactly. And it's going to have 7 years of famine, right? Okay. The 7 fat cows being eaten by the 7 lean cows mean that those basically would be 7 years of lean years. That you are basically going to have to take those years of plenty and be able to store your harvest to be able, for your people to survive what's about to go down. Okay. So when we look at the eclipse that happened this year, 2017, and then we look at the new eclipse that's supposed to occur 7 years from now, 2024, and basically putting an X on the United States of America. When we look at that, in my opinion, the X meaning that means that we basically are screwed. We are entering in the 7 years. You see what I'm saying? In the Holy Quran, it talks about Allah will curtail her on its sides or her sides. And when we look at who is the her that's being referred to in the Quran, I don't, some of y'all may not be familiar with the Quran, but just Google what I just said. Now, this is explained in Honorable Elijah Muhammad's books, Fall of America. I might just do a series on Fall of America just for people to put people up on game and just read y'all some of that stuff that this man broke down way back in the 70s and then compare it to what's going on today. Take different sections of the book that I find that are really intriguing. But he talked about the United States being the her that's described in the Quran. It being curtailed on its sides, meaning that everyone that's on the coast is going to suffer some kind of natural disaster that's going to force the people who live on all coasts, West Coast, East Coast, South Coast, those people will be forced to the center of the country, right? And when you look at the X that these eclipses are making, that X, the center of that X is basically in the center of the country. And it also talks about in the Quran, the shaking. And that X where, the eclipse, the center point of that X is roughly in the same area that the New Madrid fault line is. See what I'm saying? And I think that is significant. I think that we are entering in to the time of the 7 lean years. We have been already been since 2008, which the last 9 years we have been in some rough times as far as economically, but we have not hit the lean years that I believe that that was talked about, that Joseph predicted. And a lot of times people may look at scriptures and they say, well, hey man, that's talking about something that happened in the Old Testament. But no, when you look at the Bible has been divided into different parts by men that say, hey man, this is old, this is new. But all of it is a story that has relevance and significance. That's the way it should be always interpreted. It should never be interpreted in that light that, hey, that happened a long time ago. If that's the case, then we should never look. I mean, even the New Testament would not have any significance because that's old. But the book is really one complete book of prophecy. I'm not gonna get into all of that. Okay, so but when we look at the natural disasters that are occurring, and people want to say it's HAARP, it's the government doing this, and they're gonna construct this stuff and basically send these hurricanes and stuff to basically destroy these cities, and then turn around and they got so much technology that they can create not just one Hurricane Harvey, but they creating these other three that's out there in the Gulf and in the Atlantic that's gonna come straight to to major cities. They can create the hurricanes and direct their path. Okay, they can do that, direct their path, and then direct them to these cities, totally destroy the cities, mess them up, and then bail these cities out, spend hundreds of billions of dollars rebuilding. That makes no sense. Everybody is giving the government credit and all of these, HAARP credit. No, nobody's saying this is God. And even if you would, if you even like I said, even if you had the argument that is the devil that is doing that, you have to think about this. Then God allowed it to happen. Blame Him, because everything that happens that happens, um, God allows. Even if the devil did it, God is the only way the devil has the power to do it is because of God allowed him to do it. So it's still him doing it. And I mean, to me, I know there's some people that was talking about, HAARP and them seeding the clouds. I think that is doing it to poison people. And maybe there's something about the climate or what the a hurricane brings in the atmosphere that allows it to spread quicker. You got all that water, you got all that moisture that's basically in the atmosphere. Maybe, let's say hypothetically, maybe it's the atmosphere that's created from the hurricane, the wind that is able to disseminate whatever they're putting in those clouds, the chemtrails, maybe that is able to move that stuff into the atmosphere more quicker. Now that I can believe, but the other stuff, them seeing the clouds, and I know they can do that in cause thunderstorms, but hurricanes of this magnitude back to back, no, I don't think so. Um, and a lot of times we talk about global warming and those things happening and being a cause of the increase in natural disasters, but still, um, it's like Muhammad said, Honorable as Muhammad said, it's because of this country's mistreatment of black people. We are being plagued right now. We are in it. And we look at the book of Exodus, all of that served the purpose to actually um, humble the government, humble the Egyptians or Egypt to do the right thing by God's people. I don't mean to get talking about that, but yeah. So We don't know right now what direction these hurricanes are going to go, but from what I can see right now, Irma, it looks like it's going to tear up Florida, man. And Jose is coming right behind it. To me, it looks like whatever Irma does not, well, whatever Irma misses, Jose is going to finish it up. Katia, whatever you want to say, no telling where that's going. It looks like it's forming and it's going to hit Texas again. And I thought about this before that happened. I said, what would it be like for has that ever happened where a major city or part of the United States, has it ever been hit back to back by major hurricanes? That would be unprecedented. That is something that is biblical. But with that, man, I gotta go and look forward to seeing y'all guys later. Peace.